My husband and I have been married for 5 years. And every year on my birthday, he gives me a gift. Until the eve of my birthday this year, I wanted to surprise him. To my surprise, I saw him personally putting an identical gift on his little sweetheart. I returned home and rummaged through all the birthday gifts from previous years. Gold necklaces, gold bracelets, gold rings. I picked up a hammer and smashed them down hard to vent my frustration, only to reveal silver inside. It turns out, everything he gave me was fake. I turned around and threw everything into the trash can. I don't want any of this garbage man or garbage gifts. Chapter 1. At dusk, the door lock opened. Charles stumbled in, reeking of alcohol. Seeing the smashed gift on the floor, he paused slightly, displeased, and tugged at his tie. Elena Hahn, what do you mean by this? I scoffed. I was going to ask you the same thing. So it turns out that every birthday, the gifts you give me are just gold-plated iron. So what? Charles was completely unconcerned. The main thing about giving gifts is the thought behind them. Don't you like them? Stop making a fuss. I just finished a social event and I'm very tired. I crossed my arms. Mine is gold-plated iron. But the one you gave to your little sweetheart is pure gold. You really are double standard. Since you like her so much, why don't you just go to her instead of coming home? I said enough. Charles removed his coat, glaring at me fiercely. Laura and I are just ordinary friends. Don't use your filthy thoughts to slander us. If there was really something between us, I wouldn't have married you. You receive so many gifts every year on your birthday, while Laura is an orphan. I was almost amused by his robber logic. So it's my fault she's an orphan? Her not receiving gifts has nothing to do with me. Don't forget, you are my husband, not hers. Back then, when I met Charles, he was always with Laura. The two of them inseparable. He always said Laura was his sister. Just one took their mother's surname and the other took their father's surname. At that time, the naive me had no doubts and treated her like my own sister. It wasn't until one time when I went to find Charles that I saw him kissing Laura, and I was terrified, thinking they were committing incest. Only after that did I learn that the whole sibling story was a lie. Laura was an orphan without parents, having lived in an orphanage since childhood, and the two had known each other since they were young, like childhood sweethearts. I want to break up. Charles is kneeling in front of me, constantly slapping himself, begging for forgiveness, and saying that he has already blocked Laura and will have no further contact. After all, we have been together for 3 years, and I couldn't bear to part ways like this. So in the end, I forgave him. After that, Laura disappeared. I observed for a full year, confirming that Charles had no further contact with Laura, and only then did I step into the halls of marriage with him. However, a year ago, Laura appeared once again. At that time, Charles and I were attending a party, and Laura was also there with her boyfriend. Charles never spoke a word to her throughout, not even a glance. I thought they had really broken up. In hindsight, I was too naive. Charles no longer wants to explain to me. Think whatever you want. I stand upright and fear no shadows. Rather, it's your thoughts that need changing. Your mind is filthy, seeing everything as dirty. Having said that, he turned and entered the bedroom. I sat in the living room, forcing myself to stay calm, and then dialed my father's number. Dad, can you help me find a private detective? On the other end of the line, my father's voice came through, slightly aged. I've told you before, Charles is just a Phoenix man. If it weren't for our family's conditions, he wouldn't have married you at all. In the past, I thought my father was too materialistic. But now it seems that my father was right. I hung up the phone, put on my trench coat, and threw the gold-plated iron on the ground into the trash can. I have no intention of keeping such a trashy man. I found a hotel and checked in. The next day, I was woken up by the sound of a ringing phone. Elena, where are you? I drank so much with clients yesterday, and this morning I woke up without even having breakfast. What kind of wife are you? I'm giving you half an hour. Come back and make me breakfast right away. I laughed. Charles, I am indeed your wife, but I am not your servant. In the past, making breakfast for you was my choice, but now, I no longer wish to do so. Looking back on these 5 years of marriage, I have always played the role of a virtuous wife and mother. I feel heartbroken for Charles, who leaves early and returns late every day, and I worry about him drinking himself into a stupor for business. I never expected that he would take all of this for granted. Elena, how long do you plan to make a fuss? You nitpick over such trivial matters. You have really changed. I hung up the phone directly and blocked him. In the afternoon, I went to see the private detective. I thought I would explain the situation to him properly, but unexpectedly, the private detective directly took out a thick stack of documents. Ms. Hahn, Chairman Hahn has long hired me to investigate Charles. This is the information from the 5 years since he married you. Chairman Hahn mentioned it to you before, but you didn't believe him. It almost caused a rift between father and daughter, which is why he never told you. I remembered that shortly after I married Charles. My father once approached me and told me that Charles wasn't honest. But at that time, I was in a sweet phase with Charles. He treated me very well, and I could check his phone and computer freely, so I naturally didn't believe it. Because of this, I had a huge fight with my father, and I didn't visit him for a full 6 months afterward. I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt as I opened the documents in front of me. After seeing the contents inside, I could hardly stop trembling. Charles has been lying to me all along. Chapter 2. Except for the year before our marriage, it is true that he and Laura were apart. For the remaining time, he was always with Laura. On the second day after our wedding, Laura returned to Deer City. Charles rent her an apartment and even bought her a car for transportation. Not only that, he also got Laura into the company I had opened for him. Every time Charles makes an excuse to socialize and comes back drunk, it's all just an act. The smell of alcohol is only sprinkled on as he reaches the door, and the time before that was spent in Laura's rented apartment. What a pair of dogs. Just thinking about how I've been played for these past few years makes me want to find Charles immediately and slap him hard. The private detective looked at me pityingly. Miss Hahn, actually Laura does nothing at the company. She just scrolls on her phone and plays on the computer every day. Her salary, her life, are all taken care of by Charles. In other words, Charles is using my money to support his little sweetheart outside. Does everyone in the company know about this matter? The private detective nodded. Everyone thinks Laura is the boss lady. I suddenly thought of something. I had also wanted to visit Charles at the company to bring him lunch, but Charles made the excuse that he didn't want outsiders to know that this company was started by a woman for him, not wanting others to secretly gossip behind my back, asking me not to appear. I took his pride into consideration and never appeared again. Not even anyone knew that I was the real boss. The private detective took out his phone and said, "This is the company group." As I opened the content inside, the heart that had long been dead ached once more. Aside from the usual work handovers in the group, it was all Laura and Charles showing off their love with photos. They leaned closely together, like a pair of wall figures. Suddenly, a photo appeared in the group. It was a bouquet of bright red roses. The one who sent the photo was none other than Laura, accompanied by a caption that read, "Today is my birthday. I hope everyone can wish me a happy birthday." The crowd in the group immediately responded, "Happy birthday to the boss's wife. May you always be 18. Wishing the boss's wife and the boss a harmonious union for 100 years. May you be forever united. Happy birthday to the boss's wife. The flowers from the boss are really beautiful." Laura was very happy and sent one red envelope after another in the group. Each one is the maximum amount, which caused a cheer in the group. I tightly gripped my phone. Every penny she spent was mine. The private detective cleared his throat and said, "Miss Hahn, this Laura is an orphan. No one knows her exact birth date. But since you married Charles, her birthday has been set for today." I suddenly felt a churn in my stomach and rushed into the bathroom. Today is also my birthday. Laura setting it for today is clearly intentional. Fine. Since she wants Charles that trash so much, I'll just give him back to her. I washed my face, returned to my seat, and secretly added the group. It's quite lively inside right now, and no one noticed an extra person. When I got home, sure enough, Charles wasn't there. In the past, I hoped every year on my birthday that he would be with me, but he made excuses about wanting to give me a better life, only coming back late at night, claiming to be tired. Now it seems he was clearly exhausted from being with his little sweetheart. I dug out the marriage certificate, the company's registration proof, the legal representative document, and a series of other documents. At the same time, I called a moving company to move everything out of the house. During the moving process, I discovered that many things were missing. Valuable jewelry, designer clothes, and bags were all missing several pieces. I immediately opened the group chat and looked through the photos Laura posted today. The necklace and bag I lost are currently on her. Indeed, it's easier to guard against outsiders than to guard against a family thief. Fortunately, I have a habit of keeping receipts, so I took photos as evidence. After moving, I installed a few more cameras before leaving. Upon returning to the hotel, I immediately sent all the photos to the company group. I am the boss lady of the company and also Charles's legal wife. But not anymore. I will divorce Charles. I wish this scumbag couple would be locked away and not harm others. By the way, the company was founded by me, and I have paid all the expenses. Charles is just an operator. I will take back the company. Miss Laura, this is my purchase invoice. Please return the necklace around your neck, the clothes on your body, and the bag in your hand. This is my thing. Charles stole it to give to you, but that doesn't mean it's yours. I can understand liking second-hand men, but flaunting in someone else's second-hand clothes, I just can't comprehend. If Miss Wang is really so poor that she can't afford clothes, I can rally charitable people to donate to you. Chapter 3. After sending it, the originally lively group chat instantly fell silent. After a while, a female employee sent a message. I always thought Laura was the legitimate boss's wife, but it turns out she's just a mistress who intruded on someone else's relationship. The boss, a man living off others, dares to be so brazen. Today I've learned something new. I hate scumbags and mistresses, so I'm resigning. After saying that, the other party immediately left the group. My phone started vibrating nonstop. Although it was an unfamiliar number, I knew it must be Charles. I pressed the answer button. On the other end, I heard Charles's frantic voice. What are you doing? Hurry up and retract everything you sent. My relationship with Laura is completely innocent. She has a boyfriend too. What will happen to her happiness if you slander her like this? Now, not only am I losing face, but so are you. On the other end of the phone, a woman's crying voice could be heard. Charles, I don't want to live anymore. How can my sister-in-law slander me like this? I want to jump off a building. Charles was extremely distressed and immediately shouted at me. Elena, you need to come over right now and apologize to Laura. If she jumps off a building, you'll be the murderer. Then let her jump. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with me. By the way, before you die, don't forget to return my things. After saying that, I hung up the phone. After that, Charles kept calling, so I simply set it to reject unknown numbers. About an hour later, my phone alerted me, notifying me that someone had entered the surveillance range. When I opened it, sure enough, it was Charles, holding Laura, brazenly stepping into our new home. That damn Elena actually moved everything away. Charles, what are we going to do? If she divorces you, won't you be left with no money? Don't be afraid. Charles held Laura close, gently kissing her forehead. I've been married to her for 5 years. I know exactly what kind of person she is. As long as I ask her, she will forgive me. Charles, I really feel for you. After you two make up, I want to spend more of her money to get back at Charles. Silly girl. From the very beginning, I married her for her money. Otherwise, who would support you? After speaking, the two kissed, passionately falling to the ground, using the sky as a blanket and the earth as a bed, getting tangled up together. I felt so nauseous that I almost threw up and immediately turned off my phone. Anyway, with these recordings, that's enough. Charles not only is suspected of having an affair, but he also committed marriage fraud. I had a lawyer draft the divorce agreement and send it directly to the family group, saying, I want to divorce Charles. Charles's mother immediately called. She was originally just an ordinary rural woman. When she first met me, she was timid, but after seeing me behave well and obediently, She began to act domineering, considering that it is Charles's family and they don't live together. I didn't think too much about it. Elena, what are you up to again? Charles works so hard every day for you, while you just stay at home, eating and doing nothing, not earning a penny. How can you even think about divorce? Heh, is that what Charles told you? What else could it be? My son earns so much money every month, and you spend it all. I haven't even said anything to you. But you, I hung up the phone directly, too lazy to say more to her. Messages kept coming in the group. It's all Charles's relatives. Elena, if you ask me, you should be content. After all, Charles makes so much money. Where else are you going to find such a good husband? Exactly. After so many years of marriage, not a single child has been born, and you still have the nerve to mention divorce. Charles's mother started attacking me incessantly in the group. Everyone come and judge. Elena hasn't worked a day since we got married, and all her food and drink are provided by us Charles. Whenever Charles is a little unhappy, she brings up divorce. Is she even letting Charles live? Today's women are all like this. They should be taught a good lesson. I directly sent the surveillance video to the group. Charles not only is suspected of having an affair, but also of marriage fraud. If you continue to attack me, I will report it to the police. As soon as these words were spoken, the group fell silent. I opened the company group again. I didn't expect Laura not only didn't kick me out, but instead started explaining in the group like a white lotus. Sister-in-law, please don't be angry. Charles and I have known each other since we were young. Like siblings. What the staff said was just a joke. If there was really something between us, it would have happened long ago. Why wait until now? Sister-in-law, this is a family matter and should be resolved behind closed doors. You're making Charles look bad. As a man, his self-respect is the most important thing. Sister-in-law, how can you ever forgive me, or let me die then? Immediately after, she sent another photo taken on the rooftop, showing the view from several stories high. Everyone urged her not to. Don't jump. We believe in you. Boss lady, don't make it difficult for Laura. We can testify that they really didn't have any overly intimate actions in the company. It was all just our misunderstanding. No matter what, human life is the most important. These messages were sent in the last hour. I threw out the surveillance footage again. Jumping off? Miss Wong, weren't you with my husband, being intimate in our newlywed home at this time? Chapter 4. As soon as the video was released, the group fell silent once again. A few seconds later, messages popped up one after another. Laura, how could you deceive us and exploit our sympathy? It's truly disgusting. The boss lady. No, it should be the real boss. This Laura has always presented herself as the boss lady in the company, bossing us around for no reason, which is why we all misunderstood. That's right. It's all her misleading. Otherwise, why would we call her the boss lady if she wasn't angry? It's clear that she is admitting it. It seems that the eyes of the public are still sharp. I sent another message. Laura, stop directing and acting in your own play. Every penny you spend, to be precise, is mine. If you don't pay me back, I can sue you according to the law, and it won't just be about repaying money then. After sending it, I turned off my phone and organized all the money I had given to Charles over the years, making sure every single amount was accounted for. He is suspected of marriage fraud, but there is no so-called marital property. Everything belongs to me. Not only Laura, but even Charles's money must be returned to me. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. I thought it was the hotel room service, so I opened the door. I didn't expect that standing at the door were Charles and Laura. Charles had a gloomy expression, while Laura was covering her wrist, with faint traces of blood still visible. I wanted to close the door, but Charles raised his hand to block it, saying, Elena, don't go too far. Making such a scene does no good for you. We are a couple, and if I lose face, you lose face too. Do you really want to divorce me? Don't forget how you pursued me in the first place. If it weren't for you, I would have already married Laura. You destroyed my love, and now you want to destroy me as a person? Even though my heart has died, I still can't control the pain. It turns out that in his eyes, I destroyed his love. Then why did he agree? Why did he marry me? Get lost. Charles. Don't push me. Sister-in-law. It was I who seduced Charles. I promise I won't do it again. Please forgive Charles. She revealed her bloody wrist. Sister-in-law. All the blame is mine. After saying that, she knelt down decisively, seeing her crawling at my feet. I couldn't help but look at her with a bit more respect. It turns out that a person without shame can truly be invincible. Even if I have invested many years, it is still not as effective as her simply beckoning with a finger. I kicked hard, saying, "Don't dirty my resting place." "What are you doing?" Charles held Laura with concern. "How can you lay a hand on Laura? She is an orphan, and I am all she has. Can't you be a little more generous? How about this? From now on, you give her 10,000 yuan a month for living expenses, and I won't have any contact with her, nor will I divorce you. I am her brother, and it is only natural for me to take care of her. If it weren't for your lack of generosity, Laura wouldn't have had to leave her home and suffer outside. After all this time, it's still my fault." I picked up the decorative vase next to me, saying, "If you don't get out of here, this vase will end up on your dear sister." Charles felt sorry for Laura, finally stepping back while holding her. "Elena, don't regret this." At this point, he is still threatening me. It doesn't matter anymore. I just want to get my money back. Not a single cent less. I would rather donate to stray dogs than spend it on that pair of scumbags. The next day, I was awakened by the sound of my phone vibrating. When I opened it, it was surprisingly a call from my father. "Elena, whatever you do, don't look at your phone. I will handle everything." "Dad, I'm not a child anymore. No matter what happens, I can handle it. Trust me." There was a long silence on the other end, followed by a faint sound of sobbing. "Okay, Dad believes in you. Once the divorce is finalized, you can come home, and I'll cook your favorite dishes every day." After hanging up the phone, I immediately checked the news online. It turns out someone had uploaded the footage from outside the room yesterday. There was no conversation beforehand, only the scene of Laura kneeling, along with the voices of Charles and me. Even that line where Laura said she was an orphan was cut out. I opened the comments, and it was almost entirely one-sided. This woman is too petty. Why can't she accept her husband's sister? It's just one more person at the dinner table. Why does it have to be so ugly? Marrying a woman like this guarantees a troubled home. Before I could finish reading, a strange number called in. I pressed the answer button, and on the other end, I heard Charles' voice. "Elena, as long as you agree to my conditions, I will remove the trending topic online and it won't affect your father's company. If you dare to post that evidence online, even if you are in the right, can your father's company withstand any shock? With such a scandal, your father's company is bound to collapse. By the way, you probably don't know yet, but your father's funding chain has encountered problems and is about to go bankrupt. I still have quite a bit of money on hand that I can lend you, but you need to give me an IOU." Chapter 5. No wonder he is so bold and increasingly unwilling to hide. Originally, Charles thought my dad's company was going to go bankrupt, and that no one would support me anymore. Once it goes bankrupt, he is indeed the only one I can rely on. I immediately hung up the phone and called my father. "Dad, why didn't you tell me about such a big issue with the company?" My father smiled awkwardly. "Isn't it to avoid worrying you? I lost my mother at a young age, and my father never remarried for my sake. I used to resent him for being busy with work every day, only caring about making money and not about me. Looking back now, I realize I was really too ungrateful. I can no longer hold back my sobs. Dad, where are you? I'm coming to find you." An hour later, I returned home. Father has aged much more than a year ago, with gray hair at his temples and a slight hunch in his back. Unbeknownst to me, my once young and strong father has aged so much. I threw myself into his arms, tears streaming down my face. "Dad, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." He gently patted my back. "Silly girl, no matter what you did, Dad won't blame you, because you are Dad's precious treasure." I went from tears to laughter, taking out the bank card from my bag. "Dad, actually over the years, I've invested in several companies. and the dividends have been quite substantial. I've saved a lot of money during this time. By the way, we can also sell those clothes, jewelry, and famous paintings at home first. I believe you can definitely get through this tough time. All of these combined can at least raise 70 million. Father started from scratch and is extremely skilled in business. With money, he can surely turn the situation around. Okay, daughter, don't worry. Dad will definitely not let you down. Since we have money now, let's quickly clarify the situation online. Even if the stocks drop, Dad is not afraid. I took out my phone and dumped all the evidence online, and I even bought a trending topic and maximum traffic. In just 1 hour, my clarification went viral. The comments turned against him again, but this time they were all on my side. What, sister? This is clearly a mistress. So disgusting. This is clearly a marriage scam. The kept man is still out there supporting another woman. How shameless. How could he have the audacity to say that his wife should give him 10,000 every month? Does he really think the world revolves around him? Beautiful sister, I support you in getting a divorce immediately and reclaiming all your money. I turned off my phone and said, Dad, it's time to settle the score with him once and for all. My father's company has legal counsel, and I had them help draft a divorce agreement, listing all the financial assets, which added up to a hefty document of over 10 pages. If Charles doesn't pay me back, then I'll sue him for marriage fraud. From the very beginning of our marriage, he was only in it to support other women. I believe the court will surely give me a fair judgment. In the following days, I stayed at home, helping my father get through this tough time. Once the funds started flowing in, everything became smooth sailing. The down payment that I couldn't afford before has all been settled. The goods have been delivered, and I will soon be able to receive the payment. 1 week later, I saw Charles's parents at the entrance of my father's company. They had completely changed from their previous arrogant demeanor. Upon seeing me, they immediately put on a flattering smile. Ku's mother quickly walked up to me, affectionately taking my hand. Elena, this matter was Charles's fault. Don't worry. His father and I have already given him a good lesson, and we guarantee he will never contact that wretched girl again. You see, you have been married for several years now, and there haven't been any conflicts. It would be a pity to get a divorce like this. In a marriage, there are bound to be arguments. As long as one is willing to admit their mistakes, it can still work out. Look at his father. He has done such things too, and I have forgiven him, right? Now we are growing old together, and life is so good. Moreover, as a woman, have you truly become a virtuous wife and good mother? Perhaps there is something you are not doing well that has distracted Charles. As long as you perform well in the future, Charles will definitely not betray you. Ku's mother is not an educated person. She only studied until the 3rd grade of elementary school, yet she cannot articulate such sophisticated thoughts. It must have been taught by Charles. Even now, he still holds himself in high regard, truly thinking that I cannot live without him. Aunt, there's no need to say more. I'm definitely getting a divorce. Since Charles likes Laura so much, I have to do him a favor. Otherwise, I would become a sinner for all time. Ku's father's expression was dark as he stepped in front of me. How many men don't make mistakes? He just made one mistake. Do you have to sentence him to death? You two should reconcile. And from now on, I'll keep an eye on Charles. I absolutely won't let them contact each other again. I let out a cold laugh. Uncle, the person least qualified to say this is you. Betrayal can only happen 0 times or countless times. By the way, inform Charles that I will give him one last chance. Hurry up and sign the divorce agreement and return my money. Otherwise, I will go to the police and sue. Ku's father's face clearly showed some guilt. He is not a good person either. He has been keeping another woman outside, especially after Charles and I got married. Their conditions improved, and they also enjoyed the good life. Ku's father even found a student who is more than 20 years younger than him, spending at least 10 to 20,000 a month. Chapter 6. To prevent these two from causing me more trouble. After returning to the company, I immediately had the private detective send all the photos related to Ku's father to Ku's mother. I hope that after she sees the photos, she can still say such insensitive things. At 8 o'clock, my father and I sat in the restaurant we once loved the most, having dinner together. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. I opened it to find a video sent by the private detective. The location was Charles's hometown, and Ku's father had scratches all over his face, his clothes stained with blood. Ku's mother wasn't in much better shape either, with a large handprint clearly visible on her face. Well, you shameless person, how dare you keep a woman outside? I really am unfortunate, marrying such a beast like you. Have you ever bought me a piece of clothing? You spend hundreds of thousands on that cheap woman. I can't go on living. Don't go crazy. Just say what you need to say inside. Aren't you just making a fool of yourself in front of others? Ku's father scolded in a low voice, still wanting to push the person back inside. Ku's mother simply sat down on the ground, wailing. If you can do such a disgraceful thing, what do I have to be afraid of losing face for? Come, everyone, come and see. This shameless kept woman is still in her 20s. Seeing this, Charles finally went up to help, and the two of them dragged Ku's mother back into the house. I closed the video, thinking about how Ku's mother had previously bossed me around. This could be considered a case of karma. Daughter, what are you looking at? I looked up and smiled gently at my father. Not much, just a message from an old classmate. Dad, let's continue eating. The stir-fried pork here is still as delicious as ever. 3 days later, Charles arrived. I walked into the company's reception room and immediately noticed the stubble on his face. After 5 years of marriage, this is the first time he has looked so unkempt. Whenever I am around, I always make sure everything is prepared. The razor is placed on his right side. His shirt is ironed daily, and I even carefully remove all the hair. Every day when he comes home from work, he can have a hot meal waiting for him. His favorite 3-sugar coffee will never be missing. If one day he gets drunk, I will still wipe his body and tuck him in. Charles looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot. Elena, I know I was wrong. I won't contact Laura again. I swear. This time it's for real. Please don't divorce me. I sat across from him, legs crossed, lazily leaning back in my chair. We must get a divorce. Elena, do you really not care about our years of relationship? I just made a mistake that every man in the world would make. Why are you being so cruel? Because I find it disgusting. Just thinking about your rotten cucumber being used on someone else makes me want to vomit. Is that reason enough? Charles stepped forward, his hands firmly pressing on my shoulders. Elena, do you not love me anymore? I understand now. It must be that our dad's company is fine, and you want to control me again, right? Well, this time you won. I have been controlled by you. I admit my mistake. My parents have already taught me a lesson. There will definitely not be a next time. Is that satisfactory to you? I looked down at my toes and said, if this is your attitude towards admitting your mistakes, then I cannot accept it. Charles gritted his teeth, the lower half of his face tense. After a long moment, he suddenly knelt before me and said, is this enough? I have already knelt down for you. I am a man, and beneath my knees lies gold. I regret it, and I promise to make it up to you doubly in the future. I laughed out loud, and as I laughed, tears started to flow. I thought I would never cry for him again. Charles, if my dad's company hadn't gone bankrupt, would you kneel and apologize? If I had no money, would you admit your mistake? I tell you, even if you jump down from here today and die to atone for your mistakes, I still won't forgive you, because you are not worthy. Those 5 years, just consider it as being bitten by a dog. From now on, my life will never have you again. Otherwise it will dirty the path of my future. I kicked him and walked out of the reception room. Charles went crazy, grabbing my clothes. Elena, do you not love me anymore? Once, I loved you deeply, to the bone. I was willing to wash my hands of everything for you, even to sever ties with my father. But you have ruined my feelings, wasted my daily and nightly devotion to you. Security, get him out of here. Even before I came to see him, I had the security guard waiting at the door, just to prevent Charles from acting out of desperation. The security guard entered and immediately restrained him. Charles struggled wildly, saying, Elena, I refuse to believe you don't love me anymore. You were the one who pursued me in the beginning. I stopped in my tracks, saying, That's true, but you have trampled on my love for you. And this is the outcome you deserve. Elena, you will regret this. You will definitely regret this. No, I won't. Leaving him is the only way to a better future. I walked away decisively, never looking back. Chapter 7. After that, Charles came to find me a few more times, but I rejected him each time. The only person who met him was the lawyer from my father's company. Originally, I thought he owed me too much money, so I gave him a month to raise the funds. However, he repeatedly harassed me, so I had no choice but to shorten the time, leaving him no opportunity to disturb my father and me in our new life. As long as Charles comes to see me once, I will directly deduct a week from the time. After 2 consecutive times, he finally stopped coming. That day, I came out of the company and planned to go to the supermarket to buy some groceries. My father is getting old, and I don't want him to eat out at restaurants every day. I plan to cook him more fresh vegetables and meat in the future to help him maintain his health. As soon as I stepped out, Charles immediately blocked my way. This time, he looked even more destitute than before. Gone was the appearance of the noble young man. Instead, he resembled an ordinary person who had been working overtime for several days. Without my support and financial backing, he turned out to be so pathetic. It turns out that the layer of golden light I had given him, Charles mistakenly thought was his own achievement. Elena, let's reconcile. I have truly severed ties with Laura. I didn't hesitate and directly called security. Get him out of here. If he shows up again, take action immediately. By the way, put up a sign here. Charles and dogs are not allowed. Also, put up his photo to prevent anyone from not recognizing him. I turned around and looked at Charles, who had a face full of anger, and said, "And now, it's shortened to a week. You only have 1 week to pay me back, or I will sue you for marriage fraud. I have a professional lawyer. You just need to see if I can win the lawsuit." Charles walked away dejectedly. After that, there was no more news. I thought he was really raising money, but to my surprise, when I opened my phone, I saw him live streaming. He was together with Laura, playing the victim. They claimed that they were originally a couple, that I used money to force them to break up, and also said that I couldn't cook during the marriage, couldn't do housework, and that all of it was done by a nanny. Moreover, I often hit and scold him, completely not seeing him as a man. He lost his dignity, which is why he ended up with his first love again. Next to me, Laura timely put on a little wife demeanor, constantly apologizing to the video and serving tea to Charles. Simply the best representation of a virtuous wife and good mother. I opened Charles' video account homepage and found that he had already filmed several short videos. The video content is all about how Laura acts as a virtuous wife and good mother, while Charles showcases his male chauvinism, subtly putting me down in the process. I have to say, this track is quite unique. Both videos went viral, and surprisingly, the live broadcast room had over 3,000 viewers. This Charles is somewhat clever, but that's about the extent of it. The comments below are almost all men accusing me of my crimes. A woman like this should never be married. One should marry a virtuous wife. Marrying someone like her will bring a lifetime of misfortune. Yes, many women don't understand that a man's dignity comes first. If you go too far, don't blame us for seeking other women. Indeed, it's better to be gentle and considerate. Those strong-willed types, no matter how much money you give me, I wouldn't look at them. They really are quite confident, not knowing how successful they are in reality. 1 week later, I had the lawyer contact Charles. This time Charles actually brought some money with him. Compared to before, he looked quite presentable, his clothes clean and tidy, and his beard was shaved very smoothly. As I got closer, I could even smell a faint hint of perfume. Charles looked at me, his eyes full of pride. "Elena, it's useless for you to regret now, because I have already decided to be with Laura. She's so wonderful. She deserves me." I curled my lips. Charles was too confident. I believe that without the support of money, it won't be long before he shows his true colors. It is easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. He and Laura, this parasitic flower, are destined not to last long together. At that time, Who knows how many jokes will be made. Charles handed over the bank card. Here is 10 million. Consider it a partial repayment to you. The rest will be discussed later. I don't have that much money right now, and you have to give me some time. No matter what. We have been married for many years. Let's not make it too ugly. It's not good for either of us. I took the bank card. All right. Then I will give you a little more time. I checked his savings. This 10 million should have been cobbled together by him. Charles is indeed heartless. He shouldn't be pushed too hard, or who knows what trouble might arise. He chuckled lightly and turned to leave. I returned to the company and handed the money to my father. Dad, let's use this money for investment. The company needs funds anyway. My father accepted it, and I felt much more at ease. In the following 2 months, Charles gradually repaid the money. He and Laura were thriving online. Although he undermined me both openly and secretly, the online audience knew the truth. Except for those self-entertaining male viewers, I also can't be bothered to deal with them, lest I lose my own identity for no reason. Most importantly, I need Charles to pay me back. Once he pays off his debts, this live stream will come to an end. Chapter 8. Another month has passed. I contacted Charles. We can go handle the divorce procedures now. Everything that needed to be done has been mostly taken care of. Just waiting for that final piece of documentation. And during my time living with my father, I have completely moved on from the pain of the past. On this day, the sun was shining brightly, and I deliberately wore my most beautiful dress, put on an exquisite makeup, and arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau in my sports car, making an incredibly high-profile entrance. For the past 5 years, I have been trapped in a family for Charles. I gave up my originally glamorous life for his so-called self-esteem. Now, I am truly myself. Charles and Laura came by taxi. Upon seeing me, Charles' eyes instantly lit up. Next to him, Laura held his arm tightly, glaring at me with hostility. Elena, today you are divorcing Charles. You can no longer contact him in the future. Because of you, I have been apart from Charles for so long, and now he is mine. I took off my sunglasses, flipping my carefully curled hair. Trash should be with trash. Just right. You, Laura, what else do you want to say? I have already walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau. Charles patted her hand and followed behind me. The staff responsible for processing the divorce certificate had clearly seen such situations before. But she looked at me, then at Laura, and sarcastically said, "This is really picking up sesame seeds and losing watermelons." Laura instantly exploded with anger. She had now become the person I used to be, dressed simply, having spent months cooking and cleaning, with no trace left of her previous delicate and pure appearance. The cooking oil has seeped into her skin, making it look dark and rough. What do you mean? How are you speaking? The staff completely ignored her, stamped the document, and smiled at me saying, "Congratulations to this young lady on regaining her single status." Thank you. I took out my phone, held up the divorce certificate, took a selfie, and then posted it on my Moments, Divorce Today. Feeling good. I didn't look at Charles and planned to leave directly. Laura stopped me and said, "Elena, we are planning to get married, and we will invite you to the wedding. You must come." I turned around, smiled charmingly, and said, "Sure. I will definitely send you a big gift when the time comes. I hope you will like it." Speaking of which, this Laura is also a person with a lot of stories. She grew up in an orphanage, and then had Charles protecting her, almost never earning money on her own, living as a parasite depending on others. How could she possibly live honestly on her own after separating from Charles for a year? After I returned, Charles couldn't wait to post the divorce certificate online. Brothers, I am officially divorced now. From this moment on, I can finally be with Laura legitimately. After going through so many ups and downs, we have ultimately become husband and wife. This is destined fate. Laura leaned gently against him, saying, "I hope this relationship can receive everyone's blessings. When we get married, we will definitely let our families see it too." Their fans were very supportive, flooding the screen with messages. Many people also sent gifts. Now, Charles has made quite a bit. Half a month later, the wedding invitation arrived, accompanied by a wedding photo. The two were dressed in a suit and wedding dress. Full of smiles, I casually tossed the invitation aside and looked at my secretary. So, how are the preparations going? The young and handsome secretary looked at me, his face slightly flushed. Chairman Han, it's already prepared. I nodded and continued to focus on my work. But after a long time, I still hadn't heard the sound of the door closing. When I looked up, he was still standing there. Do you have something else? The secretary bit his lip, his ears growing redder. Chairman Han, I have 2 tickets for the concert. Do you want to go? I raised an eyebrow slightly. Are you interested in me? The young secretary lowered his head, looking at his toes. Yes. It seemed he had mustered up his courage, suddenly looking up at me with bright eyes. Chairman Han, actually, I've liked you for a long time, but at that time you were too dazzling, and I didn't have the courage to pursue you. When I finally wanted to confess my feelings, you were already married, and I didn't dare to disturb you. I missed my chance once, and I don't want to miss it again this time. I will treat you well. I can swear. Moreover, I am now working as an executive secretary, and I can support you. I was amused by his words, and my mood improved quite a bit. This secretary is a year younger than me and started working at my father's company right after graduation. I used to come here often and would always run into him. Now that I think about it, how could there be so many coincidences? He must have been deliberately creating encounters. I just didn't expect that after all these years. He still liked me. I spread my hands. Music tickets. The secretary was taken aback for a moment, and it took her several seconds to react. She trembled slightly as she took out the music tickets. Tonight at 8. Chairman Han, you will come, right? Since I've accepted them, I will go. Wait for me tonight. You can go back to work now. The secretary excitedly agreed and almost walked out of the office in a clumsy manner. Chapter 9. I looked at the music tickets and dialed my father's office phone. Dad, it seems your executive secretary wants to pursue me. What do you think I should do? Just 2 minutes later, Father rushed in and slammed the door. Elena, is what you said true? I pointed to the concert tickets on the table. This is what he gave me. That kid, Father said with a helpless smile. Actually, I noticed long ago that he liked you. He has been working hard to be worthy of you. I was quite optimistic about him at first. But when you got to know Charles, I stopped trying to match you too. You have already gone through a marriage, and whether or not to start a new relationship is up to you. Dad believes that you must have grown a lot from the experience with Charles. But there is one thing I can tell you. That kid James hasn't dated anyone for so many years. He works almost all year round, from morning till night. I asked him why before, and he said he wants to be worthy of the person he likes. After speaking, Father continued to be busy. I looked at the concert ticket and smiled softly. It seems this little secretary is quite sentimental. Since that's the case, I'll give him a chance to pursue me. I won't deny love just because of one failed relationship. On the contrary, I have always believed in the existence of love. It just requires a bit of luck. In the evening, I dressed up carefully and arrived at the entrance of the concert hall. James had been waiting for me for a long time. He was dressed casually and looked tall and handsome, just like a college student. For some reason, I felt like an old cow eating tender grass. Seeing me, James blushed and quickly walked over. You look beautiful today. Can I not call you Chairman Han? I want to call you by your name. Sure. I looked at the rose in his hand. For me? Yes. He stuffed the flower into my arms. Let's go. We are going to see the concert. It's about to start. Once inside, I realized this was not an ordinary concert at all. The performers were a very famous dance troupe from the Northern Hemisphere, known for basing their performances on ancient culture. Therefore, the performances inside were usually quite bold. Soon, the music began. The lights in the entire venue went out. The next second, the members of the dance troupe entered from both sides. They were all wearing animal skin outfits, with the men only covering their lower bodies, exposing their muscular upper bodies and 8-pack abs. A hand appeared in front of me, and a very aggrieved voice sounded in my ear. Don't look. I pushed him away. I want to see. Who doesn't like a man with abs? Back then Charles was also a handsome guy with abs, but now he only has a beer belly. His voice sounded again, almost crying. I also have abs. I have 8 of them. I let out a chuckle, turned my head to look at him, and in the dim light, he looked like a big dog wagging its tail madly, trying to show off. But others will show me. Will you? He looked at me eagerly. I will. You can look however you want. This guy is really tempting. After watching the concert, I felt nothing, but James's face was already ripe. Do you want to eat some late-night snacks? I suddenly wanted to tease him a bit. If you let me touch your abs, maybe I would consider it. He grabbed my hand and placed it on his stomach, saying, all right then, let's go have a late-night snack. Through the thin fabric, the flesh inside felt extremely firm. My fingers counted from top to bottom, piece by piece. I must say, you really do have an 8-pack. You look like a pretty boy, but your physique is quite impressive. James's hands were almost trembling. Don't do this. If I had known this concert would be like this, I wouldn't have brought you here. I finished joking and stepped forward. Aren't we going to have a late-night snack? Let's go. We arrived at a barbecue restaurant. The decoration inside is very distinctive. We sat at the table in the corner. James thoughtfully helped me prepare all the condiments. I watched him busying himself and suddenly thought of myself. Back then, I was just like Charles, except I was in James's role. With the dipping sauce in front of me, I curiously asked him, how do you know my taste? I know everything about you. Perhaps the lighting was a bit dim, and he had become bolder. I have learned everything about you. I propped my chin up. Oh really? What's my favorite flower? Sunflower. What fish do I like the most? Eel. What color do I like? White. He answered all 10 questions in a row without hesitation. I have to admit, James really put in the effort. Halfway through the meal, the drinks arrived. I haven't had a drink in a long time. I've been feeling a lot of suppressed emotions lately, so I might as well relax completely. Before I knew it, our table was filled with bottles of alcohol. Alcohol gives courage. I grabbed James's collar and said, don't you care that I've been divorced? No, I don't care. He knelt sincerely at my feet. You are the light I look up to. Do you remember? Back then, when you and the chairman came to the first high school, you pointed at me and said I was the best looking. Willing to help me. Chapter 10. A somewhat vague image surfaced in my mind. At that time, I was only about 15 or 16 years old, accompanying my father to the school for inspections, helping students in need, assisting them in getting into college. A row of students stood in front of me, all of whom were outstanding students. At a glance, I saw the best-looking James, with red lips and white teeth, a youthful elegance. I immediately pointed at him. Dad, he is the best looking. Just him. So that's why this happened. James held my hand, kissing it gently. Elena, from that moment on, I knew you were the one I wanted, and that has never changed over the years. You are divorced. Can you give me a chance? Just once. I promise I will make you happy. Fueled by alcohol, I wrapped my arms around his neck. Is that so? Then let me check your assets first. A night of madness. When I woke up again, it was on the big bed in the hotel. A hand rested on my waist. I held my hungover head, recalling what happened yesterday, and couldn't help but blush. This little secretary truly has some skills. I pushed his hand away, carefully put on my clothes, and prepared to leave. To be honest, I wasn't ready to start a new relationship so soon. I grabbed my bag, intending to leave. A soft voice came from behind. Elena, are you regretting it? Or do you not want me anymore? I awkwardly turned around. He was sitting on the bed, his upper body covered in the scratches I left. To be honest, I didn't know that when feelings run deep, I could be so wild. This is a feeling that Charles has never given me. His hair was fluffy and somewhat messy, with a pair of eyes that were glistening. Did I do something wrong? Were you not satisfied yesterday? Yesterday? I cleared my throat, not daring to look at the mess on the ground. I have something to do today, so I'll leave first. I ran away in shame. Sitting in the car, I slapped my forehead. Alcohol really does cause trouble. When I got home, I washed off the smell of alcohol, changed into a new outfit, and headed to the largest hotel in the city center. As soon as I arrived at the hotel entrance, I could see a large photo. The people in the photo are none other than Charles and Laura. Today is their wedding day, and I am here to deliver a gift. I walked into the banquet hall, where quite a few guests had already arrived. Charles was entertaining the guests with his parents. I slipped in from the side, avoiding any direct contact with them. Just as I sat down, James's voice rang out. "Little Chairman Hahn, did you forget? I'm here to attend as well." I turned around, and James had already changed into a suit, returning to his usual serious demeanor. I nodded with a smile. "Then let's wait for the wedding to begin together." I don't know if it was for the sake of the live broadcast, but this wedding was held in an extremely grand manner. Laura walked onto the stage in her wedding dress, and upon seeing Charles's outstretched hand, she was in tears. "Charles, we are finally together." Before the host could even begin, they couldn't wait to kiss each other, proving to the world how deeply they loved one another. After a long while, the two finally let go. The host joked with a smile, "You two really have a great relationship." Laura choked with emotion. "Charles and I have known each other for over 10 years. Although there were others in between, the outcome is good. Charles, I finally became your wife. This is something I have always dreamed of." Charles revealed a deep affectionate expression at the right moment. "Me too. I have always dreamed of marrying you." The audience erupted in thunderous applause. In the live broadcast room, there were countless gifts. Creak. The door to the banquet hall opened. Several middle-aged women appeared at the door, each dressed lavishly, striding onto the stage with an imposing presence. Seeing them, Laura turned pale with fear, her whole body trembling uncontrollably. "Well, you little slut. How dare you live stream online? I told you, I never want to see you again in this lifetime. If I see you again, I will make sure you won't have it easy." The woman in charge rushed up to Laura and slapped her hard. "What are you doing?" Charles shoved her away, saying, "Who are you? Get out of here quickly, or I will call the police." The other women sneered. "Oh, you really think she's something special? You probably don't know, do you? She's a professional mistress on the side. All of our husbands have been with her, and they've even played group games. If it weren't for the time I felt unwell and went to the hospital for a checkup, I wouldn't have known that I had contracted a dirty disease. And it was this shameless woman who infected us." Charles couldn't believe it. This is impossible. In his heart, Laura was the purest woman in the world. She was innocent and kind. How could she do such a thing? A woman seized the moment when he was distracted, yanking Laura's wedding dress and forcefully pinning her to the ground. "You've made us suffer so badly, and you still want to live a good life? Dream on, sisters. Beat her up." Laura's screams echoed. "Stop hitting me." The audience was in an uproar. My God, what a melodramatic scene. This woman is too shameless. No wonder the original partner came knocking. If I were her, I would absolutely not let him off easy. A scumbag cheating in marriage, and a gold digger resorting to any means for money. They really are a perfect match. I watched this farce, curling my lips. This is not enough. Chapter 11. Next to me, James pressed the remote control. The large screen behind switched from wedding photos to a series of disgraceful images. All of them show Laura lying in a man's arms, her face full of satisfaction. But this is not the most shocking. In one of the photos, several beer-bellied men surrounded her, and she knelt in the middle, wearing only a thin veil, everything visible. Many guests stood up and took out their phones to take pictures. Fans watching the live stream were all blown away. "Damn, so this is just a cheap whore. You guys are playing me. Refund all the gift money to me. Refund. Refund. If you don't refund, I'm going to report it to the police." These viewers liked the delicate and homely Laura, not a public bus. Charles's eyes were bloodshot, staring intently at the photo on the big screen. Laura's wedding dress was tattered. She struggled to grasp Charles's ankle. "Charles, I am your wife. Please save me." Charles suddenly looked at her, stepping on her wrist. You bitch. How dare you deceive me? Laura was crying uncontrollably. Charles. I didn't deceive you. The year I left you, I couldn't find a job and couldn't afford to eat. They deceived me, saying they could find me a job, but instead, they imprisoned me in a hotel. Charles. Everything I said is true. You have to believe me. They drugged me. That's why I became like that. Woo-woo. Charles. You can't abandon me. We are already married. We are legal spouses. Charles kicked her out without any courtesy and walked towards the exit. Today he became the biggest joke. Koo father and Koo mother's faces turned pale. They had no face to stay any longer and quickly ran away. In the end, this wedding ended unhappily and was completely ruined. Several women grabbed Laura's hair and dragged her off the stage, saying, "See? With a worthless person like you, no man will ever want you. I'm telling you, you'd better not let us see you online. As long as you're doing well, we might come looking for you again." Laura not only caused them physical problems but also destroyed the families they had worked so hard to maintain. If it weren't for the law, they would have longed to kill someone. After a few rounds of fighting, they finally left. I've seen enough of the show. James. Let's go. Laura saw me and screamed like crazy. Elena. It must be you who did this. Do you have to ruin me? You've already taken Charles. What more do you want? I put on my sunglasses and left without looking back. I find talking to someone like her disgusting. I thought Charles would divorce Laura, but unexpectedly, Laura actually went back. Not only that, the two of them started a new script. In the phone, Charles sat on the sofa like a lord, while Laura knelt at his feet. Charles. I was wrong. After saying that, she even slapped herself, serving Charles with no dignity as he got dressed and ate. Seeing this, I felt a churn in my stomach, but clearly, the fans were enjoying it. One by one, they suggested in the comments how Charles should take revenge. Charles immediately leaned closer to the screen. Thanks to our easygoing brother for the gift. So you want me to make this woman drink toilet water, right? All right, I'll do it. He dragged Laura into the bathroom, ignoring her pleas, and forcefully pushed her into the toilet. I felt a bone-chilling cold. This was the man I once loved. A creature worse than a pig or a dog. I immediately clicked to report. Such a live broadcast room should not be active online, and even less should it be able to make money. Otherwise, some evil people might see it and possibly imitate it. In the end, it is always women who suffer. I do not pity Laura, but I do not want anyone to fall into such a quagmire because of this. Charles's live broadcast room was shut down, and he lost the last way he could make money. When I was around, he didn't need to do much. He had a publicly listed company to manage, countless experienced employees to earn money for him, and me as his supportive partner. He stands on the shoulders of giants, yet believes he climbed up step by step. The luxurious life over the years has completely led him to sink, and he has long lost any real ability. Charles slapped Laura hard across the face. Bitch, it's because of you that I can't make money from the live stream now. He still felt unsatisfied and delivered another slap. Laura covered her face, extremely aggrieved. Charles, how can you blame me? It was you who pushed me to climb the social ladder. Otherwise, how would I have encountered such a situation? Are you blaming me? Charles yanked her hair and slammed her down on the sofa, beating her violently. If I had known you were such a worthless person and would get an STD, I would never have divorced to be with you. Elena is so much better than you. I must have been blind. Hearing the name Elena, Laura also got angry and began to retaliate. Since you think Elena is so great, why did you come looking for me in the first place? It was you who initiated it. Don't forget. It was also you who suggested finding a wealthy woman to support both of us. You blame everything on me now. No way. I'm not a good person, and neither are you. Chapter 12. The two fought so fiercely that they eventually attracted the attention of the police, due to their marital relationship and mutual fighting. In the end, they were just given a warning and told to live well together. The news reached my ears, and I shook my head, telling the private detective, no need to keep an eye on them. They will bring about their own downfall. The private detective chuckled. Miss Hahn, even if you don't pay me, I will continue to keep an eye on them. They truly are a rare pair in 100 years. I went with him. For the next 3 days, I was helping my father manage the company. Every day at work, I could see James with a face full of resentment, like a little wife being bullied by her husband. Each time, I awkwardly averted my gaze, pretending I hadn't seen anything, until my father couldn't take it anymore and came to the office to find me. Elena, what's going on between you and James? If you don't like him, just give him a clear answer. This kid has been wearing A every day, and the people in the company are all feeling sorry for him. I instinctively asked, who in the company feels sorry for him? Father raised an eyebrow. Of course, it's those female employees in the company. You probably don't know yet, but many people in our company like James, young, handsome, and capable. If you don't act quickly, he might be taken by someone else. After saying this, Father left. I sat in the chair, feeling both amused and helpless. Hearing those words made me somewhat uncomfortable. It seems that James has successfully made his way into my heart. During the lunch break, I went to the tea room. The door behind me made a sound, and a tall figure enveloped me. James's voice was filled with tears. Elena, what are you really thinking? I sighed, put down my coffee, turned around, and hugged him. Let's date. James was stunned. Really? Really? Of course. I leaned against his strong embrace. But you have to perform well. If you don't do well, I won't want you anymore. James excitedly picked me up and spun around several times. Elena, I love you. I will definitely make you happy. After work, I got into his car. Another night of debauchery. Not to mention, I still really like his body. In the days to come, during the day, I am at the company, exchanging glances with James and enjoying the thrill of our secret affair. At night, I return home to live with my father. Every 3 days, I visit James' home to release our mutual passion. I am quite satisfied with this stable life. It wouldn't be bad if it continued like this. But unexpectedly, Charles came knocking once again. This time, he looked even more distressed than before. His clothes were somewhat worn, and although they seemed to have been tidied up, they still exuded a sense of poverty. He stood in front of me, no longer the domineering figure he once was. Elena, can we talk? I glanced behind me, and James was about to come out. This guy is just a jealous type, and I really don't want him to see me. Otherwise, when I go back tonight, he will definitely make my life miserable. Young pups have an endless supply of energy. They can keep going until dawn and still show up to work looking refreshed, without a hint of anything unusual. All right, I only have 10 minutes. Let's go to the cafe next door. After sitting down, Charles had red eyes, and his gaze towards me was extremely emotional. Elena, I was really wrong. He raised his hand and gave himself a hard slap. I was deceived by Laura back then. In fact, I still love you. I was wrong. I am a jerk. I am sorry for you. He knelt on one knee in front of me, took out a ring. Elena, please give me another chance. Let's start over. I will definitely be a good husband, give you a warm home, and I will make up for the wrongs I did to you. Have you forgotten our wedding vows? We promised to grow old together. The year we got married, he just casually picked up the wedding rings, saying he would make it up to me later. But now it's too late. I looked at him coldly. Charles, a dog can't change its nature. Cheating is either a one-time thing or countless times. Get out with your filthy body, or I will apply to the court for enforcement. From now on, whenever you have money, it will be transferred to me first. Charles refused to give up. The next second, James kicked him away. Get lost. Stay away from my girlfriend. He looked at James, then at me. Elena, do you have a boyfriend now? This is impossible. How could it be so soon after we broke up? You loved me so much back then. How could you let go so quickly? James gripped my hand. Elena deserves better. Don't come near her, or I'll hit you every time I see you. I've trained in professional sanda, so be careful or I'll knock your teeth out. Charles was unconvinced and wanted to charge forward. Stay away from Elena. She's my wife. As a result, James directly pinned him to the ground and beat him up. I pulled him back. Forget it. Don't dirty your hands. Don't we still need to go watch a movie? Let's go. The show is about to start. Hand in hand with James, we left, while behind us came Charles's unwilling roar. Elena, it shouldn't be like this. You are clearly my wife. How can you be with someone else? But no matter how unwilling he is, the destined outcome will not change. Chapter 13. In the cinema, James held my hand tightly. Were you feeling sorry for Charles just now? Which is why you didn't let me hit him. I stuffed a mouthful of popcorn into his mouth. What are you talking about? I'm just afraid he'll frame you. Let's watch the movie. After that, James acted completely normal, and I thought he had let it go. But unexpectedly, when we got home, he tormented me for a whole night. It wasn't until I cried and begged for mercy that he finally slowed down. James wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. Elena, you can only love me. You can only watch me. Don't leave me. I love you. I lay helplessly on the bed, allowing him to thrust into my body. I only love you. Hearing this, he finally felt satisfied, let go of me, and said, Elena, good night. The next day, I simply didn't go to the company. I just couldn't get up. My whole body was sore and weak, and I was trembling while walking. After that, Charles just disappeared from my life. I will subsequently apply for enforcement. As long as he is alive, he will have to keep repaying until the debt is cleared. My relationship with James ultimately got exposed. The people in the company were all shocked to know we were together. None of them expected that we would become a couple. Many female employees were crying sadly. When I went to the bathroom, I happened to hear them comforting each other. James is such a good person. Only little Chairman Han is worthy of him. Elena, what does she deserve? She's a divorced old woman. James is still in his first marriage. No matter what, I have to give it a try. Even if I can't marry James, just a fleeting romance would be fine. I didn't disturb them. Instead, I quietly listened to their plans. As the saying goes, a beautiful flower has an owner, but you can still loosen the soil. With a goalkeeper, you can still shoot the ball. I just don't believe that James really likes a divorced older woman. You all wait and see. I will definitely win James over. Tonight it will happen. Tonight? Isn't that our company dinner? I gathered my thoughts. Rationality told me that I should be honest with James about this matter, but reason was completely contrary. I was more curious to see how James would react in private. The situation with Charles really scared me. If he could act for so many years, what if James is also acting? I only stepped out of the bathroom when there was no more noise outside. In the evening, during the time when work ends, a large number of employees excitedly gathered together to discuss going out for dinner. I was among them, but considering that employees would not enjoy themselves fully with the leaders present, I decided not to participate initially. James, I don't know when he came to my side, secretly took my hand, and said, Elena, are you coming with us? No, I'm going with my dad. You guys go ahead. Enjoy your meal at the restaurant, and we'll meet at the second venue. Well, okay. James looked at me reluctantly, turning back 3 times as he walked away. The first stop for dinner was at a music barbecue restaurant. I didn't go in. I was just watching from the car. The female employee who said she wanted to loosen the soil was sitting next to James. I calmly looked at the driver and said, let's go straight to the KTV. At the entrance of the KTV, the weather had already turned to winter, and the wind was chilly. My father and I waited in the private room for a short while before the employees arrived. They had already had a few drinks and were relaxed enough to even make jokes about me and James. I just sat quietly to the side, not wanting to participate. James also wanted to come over, but he was pulled away by his colleagues several times. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. I finished a drink, turned around, and found that James was gone. I immediately got up and walked outside. At the corner of the stairs, a female employee's sticky and delicate voice came through. James, actually I have always liked you. Don't worry. I won't affect your relationship with little Chairman Han. I just hope for a one-night affair with you. Is that okay? I won't tell anyone, and I won't come looking for you again. After tonight, Let's just pretend nothing happened. James, I really like you. Very much. I look good and have a great figure. So just agree to me. I stood behind the door, feeling a bit sour inside. James didn't respond, but he didn't refuse either. The next second, James's voice rang out. I refuse. Why? The female employee couldn't believe it. You won't lose anything. It's just about having some fun together. Besides, Chairman Han won't know. She won't know. But I find it disgusting. James said word by word. I only like Elena, and I will only like her in this lifetime. If you dare to harass me again, or say anything that might make Elena misunderstand, I guarantee you won't be able to stay in the company. You, the female employee, stomped her foot in anger. Fine, James. Let me tell you, Elena is just a divorced old woman. You will definitely regret it. You can insult me, but you cannot insult Elena. James grabbed her hand. If I hear you say that again, you can get lost. I felt an indescribable joy in my heart, along with a sense of surprise. It turns out James also has such a domineering side, which is truly a side I have never seen before. Chapter 14. Seeing signs that they were about to separate, I turned and hid in the nearby private room. James and the female employee returned to the private room one after the other. I waited for a moment before going back. As soon as I sat down, James leaned in, looking quite aggrieved. Elena, I'm not happy. What's wrong? If someone likes me, would you be jealous? Just thinking about someone liking you makes me so sour that I wish I could hide you away so no one could see. I held his hand. I would be jealous too. Really? James had been drinking, his face a bit red, leaning on my shoulder. The employees were teasing. Chairman Han, why don't you give Secretary James a kiss? Give a kiss. Give a kiss. James, his eyes were wet, looking at me with longing. I chuckled softly, kissing the corner of his lips. Is this good enough now? Wow, you kissed. It's so sweet. I believe in love again. Little Chairman Han, when are you and Secretary James getting married? I will definitely attend the wedding. Wishing Chairman Han and James 100 years of harmony. The crowd kept jeering. James looked like a shy bride, blushing as he scolded them. Just play your own games, but I will definitely let you know when I get married. Played until deep into the night. Finally, it was over. The next day, I woke up at home. Father had already made breakfast. He took out his phone. Take a look at the news. The chairman's daughter from the group remarries, and the company secretary is involved in a scandal. Seeing this headline, I almost spat out my milk. I am James? The picture below is a photo of me and James kissing, because I took the initiative, and with the dim lighting, I couldn't see James's expression, only my smile. That look did indeed resemble bullying a little boy. Father raised an eyebrow. How do you plan to handle this? Since it's a photo, it must have been taken by a company employee. Find that person and dismiss them. As for the rumors online, there's no need to worry about them. Father nodded. Let's proceed as you said. In just 2 hours, I found the person who slandered me. It was the female employee from last night. Upon receiving the dismissal notice, she angrily packed her things. Seeing me come out, she glared at me with resentment. Elena, you only have a good family background. Otherwise, a divorced woman like you would be unwanted. James is only with you for your money. I'm waiting to see how your story ends. I took the company's notebook out of her box and said, company property cannot be taken away. You are a woman too, and I hope you can see yourself in a higher light. Divorce is just a correction of mistakes. It doesn't represent anything. The female employee's face turned red. Anyway, I look down on you, and even more so on James. On the day I marry James, I will send you an invitation card, hoping you can come and witness our happiness together. She left in a huff. When I turned around, I saw James standing not far away, looking at me with bright eyes. Great. If he heard that, I'm afraid my waist will suffer again tonight. I thought Charles wouldn't show up again, but not only did he come, he made a grand entrance. He stood at the company entrance on a busy street, holding a bouquet of flowers. Elena, I love you. Let's remarry. That secretary can't give you anything. I swear, from now on I will cherish you, love you, and we will have a child together, growing old side by side. I had the security guard remove him, but this guy is like a stubborn adhesive. Not only does he come to the company every day without fail to plead for reconciliation, but he even found my home. He knelt before my father, saying, "Dad, I know I was wrong before. I will change. I will treat Elena well. Please give me another chance. Better to tear down a temple than to regret a marriage. I and Elena are the most suitable for each other. Once we remarry, we will soon have a child for you to hold your grandchild." Father already knew what kind of person he was and had him driven out. Later, both Ku father and Ku mother took turns pleading. The family really is united. I was so disturbed that I recorded a video and found out Laura had run out of phone credit. So I kindly paid for her credit before sending the message. "Miss Laura, please take care of your husband. If he harasses me again, I will have no choice but to report it to the police." The next day, Charles just arrived. Laura also arrived. She was beating Charles frantically, looking almost insane. "Oh, I was wondering why you never paid my phone bill. It turns out it was just so I couldn't go online and see you asking Elena for a divorce. You clearly said back then that you loved me the most, that I was the only one you loved, and that marrying Elena was only for her money. Now you come asking her for a divorce. You big liar." "Enough." Charles rudely shoved her to the ground. "If it weren't for your sweet talk deceiving me back then, I wouldn't have divorced Elena. You got involved with those old men and caught a disease. If I had known all this, I would never have wanted you." Laura was sitting on the ground, crying and laughing, completely losing her composure. "Now I see you clearly, Charles. You are nothing but a beast. After all these years with you, this is how you treat me, Elena. Let me tell you, I slept with Charles the day before your wedding. He explicitly said he wanted to save the wedding night for me." Chapter 15. "Shut up." Charles slapped her, saying, "If you dare to speak nonsense again, I won't hold back." Laura clutched her stomach. "Charles, I'm already pregnant. I'm giving you one last chance. Will you come back with me or not?" Charles fell silent. He actually has always wanted a child, but I don't want to get pregnant. Because of this matter, I feel indebted to him, and it would be better for him. Laura knelt at his feet crying, "Charles, I only have you now. Please don't leave me, okay? I will have a big fat baby, and then our family of 3 will be together forever." Charles gritted his teeth and finally kicked her away, saying, "Who knows whose child is in your belly? Since we got married, I have never touched you." He shouted again, "Elena, I really know I was wrong. Let's remarry." Laura staggered to her feet, all the love in her eyes turning into hatred. "Charles, you will regret this. I lost my reputation for you, becoming a despised woman whom everyone wants to attack. I will return all of this to you." Charles never took it to heart. Just as he initially thought I wouldn't leave, he similarly believed that Laura was incapable. He always underestimated every woman, only to fall hard in the end. Charles was kicked out by the security, but I knew he definitely wouldn't give up. James was jealous again. During our 3-day period, he desperately tried to win me over, saying, "Sister, as long as you feel my goodness, you won't look back. Charles is not good enough for you. He is too dirty, and I am still clean. I only have you as my woman." I turned around and hugged him. "Let's go travel tomorrow. I get annoyed when I see Charles." "Don't worry. Your salary will be paid as usual." James' eyes lit up. "Okay." The next day, we packed our things and boarded a flight abroad. We went to the most romantic countries and the most fashionable cities. We visited the East African Rift Valley and also went to the desert country. In just 1 month, we traveled to 6 countries. James's camera was filled with photos of just me. On the day we returned to the country, my father warmly welcomed us. "Elena, when do you plan to marry James?" I thought for a moment, and then spoke in response to James's eager gaze. "Next spring, when the flowers bloom and everything revives, is the best time." James held my hand, saying, "Thank you for giving me the chance to marry you." After that day, I began to plan the wedding. Last time, Charles gave me nothing. But this time, I want to give myself the grandest wedding. James is also busy, selecting the wedding dress and choosing the right wedding agency. The weather is getting colder. I walked down the street wearing a coat. Suddenly, a hand covered my face and dragged me into a van. I struggled desperately, but gradually lost my strength. Only my eyes and mouth could still move. I saw clearly that the person driving was Charles. He took me to a dilapidated old neighborhood. I didn't expect Charles to leave me. And he's living so poorly. This house is even smaller than our old bathroom. And the furniture is old, with a pervasive smell of decay. Charles put me on the sofa, looking at me affectionately. Elena, I really regret it. He desperately sniffed the scent on my body. Elena, how could I be so foolish to believe that wretched woman's words and lose such a wonderful wife like you? But we will return to the past. We definitely will. He began to tear at my clothes. I wanted to stop him but felt powerless. So I could only think of ways to buy time. Charles, don't make one mistake after another. Even if you force yourself on me today, I still won't be with you. We no longer have a chance. Can't we part on good terms? You don't have to pay back the money you owe me. I have a bank card with $500,000 in it. Enough for you to spend for a while. Charles hesitated. I knew it all along. This beast has no heart and doesn't understand love. He is with Laura because Laura can satisfy his ego as a man. He is with me because he can live the life of a wealthy young master. From beginning to end, he only cares about himself. He is extremely selfish. I struggled to move my fingers, leaning my body to pull out my phone and press the emergency call. Charles, if you dare to touch me, I will definitely call the police. But if you take the money now, I won't call the police. You know, I keep my word. Charles ultimately took the bank card from my arms, but he quickly regretted it. Elena, I didn't come to you for money. I came because I love you. As long as I have you, it's worth more than $500,000. I felt a bit of strength returning to my body, and when he lunged at me, I struggled to push him away with my shoulder, saying, "Don't touch me." He stumbled and fell to the ground. Charles, you really make me sick. I tell you, I would rather die today than let you touch me. I bit my own tongue, already resigned to my fate. Charles was frantic, turning around to search for something. I want to shut you up. Let's see how you commit suicide now pretending to be virtuous. Don't forget how you were once pinned beneath me. Chapter 16. Just when I was in despair, a loud bang echoed. The door was kicked open. A group of police officers rushed in. James was among them. He saw me and instantly his eyes turned red. Elena, I'm here. Don't be afraid. Charles changed drastically upon seeing the police, dashed into the kitchen, and jumped out the window. Half an hour later, the police came to the door. I'm very sorry, Ms. Han. We couldn't catch Charles. The terrain here is complicated, and it's dark with no streetlights, making it difficult to search. But don't worry, we will definitely catch him. James held me as we made our way to the hospital. Fortunately, I only took a little medicine, and it didn't affect my health. James held my hand, refusing to leave, saying, "Thank goodness you're okay. Otherwise, I would die with you." What are you saying? Don't say such ominous things in the future. We exchanged a smile. The next day, I was discharged from the hospital, but the police still hadn't caught Charles. However, I am not in a hurry. Nowadays, it is an information society, and unless he truly goes into hiding, he will definitely be caught. To ensure safety, my father specifically helped me choose 3 bodyguards for personal protection. Afterwards, messages about Charles came in one after another. He fled to another city, and because he had no money, he robbed a family. Unfortunately, the police still did not catch him. This Charles is quite good at escaping, but since he is in another city, there is no need to worry. I continued to prepare for the wedding with James and also needed to go back to meet his parents. James held my hand tightly. My home is in a very small mountain village. I wanted to bring them to the city, but they are unwilling to come. I smiled and comforted him. They have lived there their whole lives and are already accustomed to it. In the city, everything is unfamiliar, and they might not be happy. If you want to be filial, then it wouldn't hurt to go back a few more times and buy them some things they usually don't indulge in. James chattered on about many things regarding his parents. From his conversation, it was clear that his parents are very good people and love him very much. Even without money, having a lot of love is enough to nourish a person to grow up healthy. After all, I was meeting my future in-laws, so I specially prepared for it. I prepared various smart home appliances and bought a few more cameras, so I can check on the elderly from time to time. I chose ones that are relatively easy to use, so even if something goes wrong, James can operate it remotely with his phone. Soon, we set off, driving all the way. Although it was tiring, stopping here and there felt like a trip. James tenderly kissed my hand, saying, "You've worked hard, making you run such a long way." I shook my head. It's not hard. They will still be my parents in the future, and this is what a junior should do. James held me close, burying his head in my neck. Meeting you is the greatest blessing of my life. After driving for a full hour on the dirt road, we finally arrived at the village entrance. Before even entering, you can see a group of people standing at the entrance. At the forefront is a middle-aged couple. Their faces bear the marks of years of hard work, yet their smiles are exceptionally kind. Beside them are the villagers who came out to watch the excitement. Oh, look! James is back. He has really made something of himself. The first college student to come out of our village. James helped me get out of the car. The villagers watching the commotion immediately began to discuss. Look at this city girl. She's really beautiful. James, you really are a lucky guy. When are you holding the banquet? Let us share in the joy too. James greeted me. His parents were constantly sizing me up. Their eyes filled with satisfaction. His mother was even more excited. Her eyes reddening. Good, good, good. Let's go home. She wanted to pull me along but was worried I would dislike it. I held her rough hand in return. Auntie, which way should we go? Walk this way. James lives in the middle of the village. At first, it was a precarious old house, but after James graduated, he saved money to build a brick house with tiles. There is a bathroom inside, and they even installed a toilet. Aside from not being as exquisite as those in the city, there is nothing wrong with it. The walls are snow white, and the old couple are both clean people. His mother brought out a table full of dishes. Girl, we rural folks can't cook, so if it doesn't suit your taste, please don't force yourself. It's fine. I really like the dishes they made. They taste great. After dinner, James holds my hand and says, "Come on, I'll show you around the village." Just as I stepped out of the house, curious villagers came out one by one to look at me. A little girl ran up to me and said, "Sister, you are really beautiful." Thank you. I noticed that their living conditions were still very poor, and many households were living in mud houses. This is a very simple place that should not be limited by poverty. Evening, I nestled in James's arms, saying, "I want to invest here." James kissed my cheek. "I am with you." After living in the village for a week, we are also ready to return. When leaving, the car was piled high with various local specialties. Besides his mother, there were also gifts from the villagers. They were warm and hospitable. I fear this experience will remain vivid in my memory for many years to come. Chapter 17. Winter has arrived. Spring is not far behind. James and I flew to various places to take wedding photos. Everything for the wedding is in preparation. Coming out of the company, the cold wind howled, and the snow was thick. A familiar figure flashed by. My expression changed suddenly. Was that Charles? I immediately got in the car and sped away. In the rearview mirror, a man stood by the roadside, staring intently at me. It's Charles, no doubt. I never expected he would come back. But right after that, I saw a white figure rush out from the side and tightly embrace him. That's Laura. They really are a pair. A scumbag and a shameless woman deserve to be locked away. In the dilapidated old house, the little warmth left also slipped away through the cracks in the window. Laura held Charles tight. "Where have you been? You don't want me anymore, do you?" Her belly is already quite large. At least 6 or 7 months. Charles pushed her away in disgust. "Get lost. I don't want to see you." If it weren't for Laura, he would still be the envy of everyone as the Liu family's son-in-law. Still wealthy, driving luxury cars, and never considering money when dining out. But now, he has become a fugitive, unable to use a phone, unable to use an ID card, and can only live by robbing. Laura stared at him quietly. Charles, as long as you still want me, I will follow you. The child is yours. After being with you, I haven't been with anyone else. Don't you remember that time in your and Elena's new house? It was that time, and the timing matches. If you don't believe me, you can go for an amniocentesis. Charles plopped down on the sofa and said, I'm hungry. Go buy me something to eat. Good. Laura smiled. An hour later, she returned with pig head meat and beer, along with a box of good cigarettes. Charles without any hesitation. Laura was like a little wife serving beside him. Charles, you will stay, right? You will never abandon us. Mother and daughter, right? Stop talking nonsense. I'm going to find Elena tonight. I absolutely cannot let her marry that pretty boy. Laura clenched her fists, her face pale. Charles, can't you forget Elena? What about me? What am I to you? You're nothing. If it weren't for you, would I have become what I am now? Charles was eating when he suddenly convulsed and fell to the ground uncontrollably. Laura squatted down, stroked his face, crying and laughing. Charles, if you had promised me just now, I wouldn't have done this. I ruined my reputation to be with you, and now I have a child. The doctor told me that this child cannot be aborted. Otherwise, I will never be able to get pregnant again in my life. Wherever I go, people recognize me, call me a whore, and even spit at me. The child will become my burden, and you still want to go to Elena. Do you think you deserve me? Do you think you deserve all that I have sacrificed for you? How could you treat me this way? Her expression gradually became sinister, and a slap landed heavily on Charles's face. Since you won't let me live, then you shouldn't live either. If we can't live together, then let's die together. Charles, this is what you owe me. She picked up the kitchen knife on the table and brought it down forcefully. Blood splattered. Charles's face showed terror as death quickly enveloped him. No, don't. Laura, I was wrong. I was with you. Please stop. I won't look for Elena anymore. Charles, I can't go on living. Just die with me. But you have to walk for a while first. Wait for me down there, and I will bring Elena with me when I come down. Aren't you fond of her? When we reach the underworld, I'll have her serve us, bringing us tea and water. How wonderful that would be. The knife fell again and again. Fresh blood flowed. Charles's eyes widened, completely devoid of life. Laura leaned over his bloodied body, a terrifying smile on her face. Charles, you are finally mine. Now you can't abandon me. She sat up, picked up the pig head meat from the table, and stuffed it into Charles's mouth. Hurry up and eat. Charles, you need to be full to have the strength to support me and the child. Outside the door, heavy snow is falling. I rush to the new house that I share with James, the warmth driving away the chill from my body. What's wrong? You look so pale. James held me in his arms, helping me to warm up. I saw Charles. And Laura. I'm not afraid of Laura. She's nothing to me. What I'm most worried about is Charles. He has completely turned into a criminal now. To survive, he will stop at nothing. This time he returned from out of town. It must be for me. He will definitely come looking for me. James's expression changed drastically. I'll call the police immediately. It was only now that I realized I had forgotten such an important matter due to my overwhelming fear. The police quickly began their investigation, thoroughly searching the area I provided from start to finish. However, Charles seemed to have vanished without a trace. He was nowhere to be found. From that day on, James accompanied me every day, and bodyguards took turns standing watch, fearing that at any moment Charles might suddenly appear and harm me. Before I knew it, the new year had arrived. I spent a very happy spring festival with my father, as well as James and his parents. His mother carefully suggested that when we were on the eve of our wedding, relatives from her hometown would come over, and she hoped I wouldn't mind. Of course I wouldn't dislike them. I would warmly welcome them. These simple people deserve my kindness. His mother also told me about the current development situation in the village. With my investment, several live streaming teams have emerged in the village to help sell their agricultural products. Because they are high quality and low price, and are pure natural green foods, they sell very well. I heard that in just these 2 short months, some families have already built large tiled houses. Speaking of which, his mother was in tears, saying, "Our family's ancestral grave is smoking, which is why we encountered such a good girl like you. Rest assured, our family James will definitely treat you well. Otherwise, I will beat him to death with his father." Chapter 18. I gently held her, thinking of Charles's parents. They have never said this. Instead, they have always looked down from above, thinking that I am not worthy of Charles. At the time when spring is warm and flowers bloom, our wedding is about to take place. With only 3 days left, James was extremely anxious, starting to check and fill in gaps, afraid of making even the slightest mistake. I laughed at him. "There's no need to be so nervous. Everything will go smoothly." "That won't do. What if something goes wrong? I want to give you the best wedding, a wedding without regrets." The day before the wedding, I am making the final preparations. The house has been decorated. The wedding attire is placed in the center of the living room, and everything exudes joy. I can already imagine how lively it will be tomorrow. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. I opened the door, but saw no one. I thought I had misheard, and was about to close the door when a figure suddenly rushed in front of me. I smelled an extremely strong stench of decay. Laura, heavily pregnant, knocked me to the ground. "Laura, what are you doing?" Her body was covered in black stains, exuding a foul odor, and she grinned at me with a sinister smile. "Elena, you ruined me. Ruined me and Charles." Her belly pressed tightly against my body, rendering me unable to move. I first realized that a person could be this dirty. "Laura, don't be impulsive. You still have children." "Elena, stop pretending here." She pulled out a knife and pressed it against my neck. "It's all because of you that I've become this way. If you hadn't put our business online, how would I have become a target for everyone? If you hadn't married Charles, how would we have separated? If you had been willing to give me money back then, how would I have ended up with another old man that year? After all this time, it has all become my fault. Clearly, it was Laura who messed everything up. Yet she blames it all on me. But now I can only go along with her words. "Laura, we are both women. The real culprit is that scumbag Charles. Can you let me go for now? You have a little life inside you. If you keep pushing against me, it will be uncomfortable for him." A momentary flash of maternal love appeared on Laura's face, but it was fleeting. It quickly turned back to a snarl. "I won't listen to you. It's all your fault. It would have been better if you hadn't shown up. I have already killed Charles. He will be waiting for me underground. After I kill you, I will reunite with him, and the 3 of us will live happily together forever. As for you, you will only become our servant, forever serving us in the underworld." Laura has gone mad. I am very sure. Seeing the murderous intent in her eyes, I could not wait any longer and drove my knee hard into her stomach. Laura let out a painful scream, clutching her stomach and collapsing to the side. I took the opportunity to kick her knife away and quickly went to the nearby storage room to grab a rope. Blood flowed from beneath Laura. "My child! My child! Elena, if you dare to kill my child, I will kill you. Kill you." She struggled to get up and lunged at me again. I could only dodge and picked up the stick from behind, hitting her hard. Laura fell heavily to the ground, blood continuously flowing from between her legs. I trembled uncontrollably, and the stick fell to the ground. "Laura, I never intended to kill your child, but I had to protect myself. My home surveillance system has an automatic alarm function." 10 minutes later, the police arrived. Laura was taken away. I also told them about her killing Charles. After everyone left, the room was still filled with an extremely strong stench of blood. Just thinking about the bloodstains on Laura, which likely came from Charles, made me feel utterly nauseous. I didn't want to stay for even a second. James returned as quickly as possible, holding me in his arms. "Don't be afraid. They have all received their just desserts. Let's go. I'll take you away." It was only when I returned to my father's house that I felt a little less fear. James thoughtfully suggested, "How about we delay the wedding?" "No, we've already sent out the invitations. If we delay, it will be too troublesome. As for the new house, you can find someone to clean it up well, and the wedding procession can just be here. My father is very happy about my remarriage and has decorated this place beautifully. Just in time for tomorrow evening." James held me, and I finally had a good night's sleep. At 4 in the morning, I got up early to start putting on makeup and wearing the wedding dress. 9 o'clock in the morning, the wedding ceremony begins. Below are countless friends and family, and in front of me is the man I love the most now. He looked at me, crying uncontrollably. "Elena, I have dreamed of marrying you my whole life, and I never expected this beautiful dream to come true. Thank you for agreeing to marry me. I swear I will treat you well for the rest of my life." James solemnly placed the ring on my ring finger. "Elena, you are finally mine." The audience erupted in thunderous applause. I held a wine glass and walked over to the employees' table. The female employee who was dismissed also came. She had an apologetic look on her face. "Chairman Han, I apologize for what happened before. I thought you were not in love, but today when I saw you, I realized I was wrong." Chapter 19. She raised her glass and drank it all in one go. "I wish you a happy marriage, a harmonious union for 100 years, everlasting love, and early blessings of children." I smiled and clinked glasses with her. "All right, then I forgive you. Everyone makes mistakes. As long as one is willing to correct them, there is still a chance to become a good person." I believe she was just momentarily malicious. The wedding is over. James and I are lying in bed. He turned over and pinned me down. "Wife, on our wedding night, in the prime of our lives, we must not miss this moment." Half a month later, I received feedback from the police. They found the highly decomposed Charles on the bed in Laura's home. She actually shared a bed with Charles's corpse for half a month. What a ruthless person. After all, they were once married. The police asked me if I wanted to go. I refused. We are already divorced, and whether he is alive or dead has nothing to do with me anymore. As for Laura, she is an advanced maternal age woman who was injured previously and is now in the hospital. After she gives birth, what awaits her will be a life sentence in prison. As for her child, it is highly likely that no one will be willing to adopt, and the child will only be sent to a place like a welfare institute. After that, I stopped paying attention to their matters and closed the door to live my own little life with James. He is knowledgeable and capable. He had been working as a secretary just to be able to see me often. After getting married, I started a company with him. The company is doing very well, almost making a fortune in its first year. I thought James would be immersed in his career, but he hired a professional manager and handed the company over to them. "Honey, aren't you running the company anymore?" James held my hand as we walked down the street. "I started the company just to provide you with a better life. Now that the company is on the right track, I only need to handle major affairs. Now that we have money and time, my biggest wish is to be able to stay with you forever. In 5 years, I traveled the world with James. We have seen lion prides and hyenas. I have seen seagulls and I have seen sharks. I found the job I love most in life, which is being a wildlife photographer." James ran all over various wildlife reserves with me to support me. By the time we returned to the country 5 years later, he had transformed from a pretty boy into a tough guy. When father saw me, his eyes instantly turned red. "Elena, you have suffered. Look at you now. You are so much darker than before." Being dark is not a bad thing. It's healthy. I hugged father, and without realizing it, he had aged more. "Dad, just forget about the company. Let's go travel together." Father shook his head. "I have already handed the company over to the manager." I raised my eyebrows. "When did this happen? How come I didn't hear about it?" Father's old face turned red. "I met someone. Your Aunt Zhang. Would you like to meet her?" I didn't expect that father, at his age, would still embark on a twilight romance. Of course, I wouldn't oppose it. He has worked hard for me all his life and deserves to find someone who understands him. I went to meet this Aunt Zhang. She is a university professor who retired early to have more personal time. They met at an art exhibition. The two are of similar age, have comparable experiences, share similar interests, and even their family backgrounds are not much different. However, within just a month, they confirmed their relationship. I really like Aunt Zhang because I can see that she genuinely cares for my father and has no other motives. Such pure feelings will surely nourish their later years. After dinner, I went to the study. Dad, actually there's something else I need to tell you this time I'm back. Father looked at me. What is it? I'm pregnant. I don't want a child. I even specifically took long-acting contraceptive pills. James wanted to get a vasectomy, but I refused. I never expected that despite all the precautions. The child still came. I believe this is also a kind of fate, destined by heaven to decide to bring her into this world. I will wait for her to grow a little older and take her to explore the world during the winter and summer vacations. It not only satisfies my interests but also allows her to see a different side of the world while being with her father. It's simply perfect. Father shed tears of excitement. Good, good, good. This is a wonderful thing. At the end of the year, my daughter was born, a tiny little bundle. I thought she was very ugly. I didn't expect that later she would grow more and more beautiful. She inherited my looks, James's intelligence. When she was 3, I took her to see the other side of the world, returning only when the vacation was almost over. Anna looked at me, blinking her lovely big eyes. Mom, I want to go to the orphanage. Can I? I squatted down to look at her. Why do you want to go to the orphanage? Because the teacher said there are many unhappy children in the world, and I am very happy this vacation. I want to share my happiness with them, so they can be happy too. I rubbed her little head and said, all right, since you want to go, Mom and Dad will accompany you. Chapter 20. The next day, we procured a truckload of supplies and arrived at the local welfare institute. The conditions at the welfare institute are quite good. With support from the government and local businesses, the more than 20 children inside can eat well and dress warmly. And when they reach the appropriate age, they can go to school. If their academic performance is outstanding, they can even have their college tuition covered. The remaining children will venture out on their own after turning 18. The dean welcomed our arrival warmly. She enthusiastically introduced me to each child. Anna was handing out supplies, saying to them, hurry and eat. This candy is really sweet. If you eat the candy, we will be good friends. A big child wanted to come and snatch, but was dodged by Anna. What you are doing is wrong. I will give you, but you cannot snatch from others. James and I watched from the side, feeling gratified. I hope my darling will be kind-hearted in the future, yet not lose their sharpness. James and I are her eternal support. At that moment, I noticed a little boy beside me. He was squatting on the ground, very out of place, and his appearance seemed vaguely familiar. I asked the dean, who sighed and said, this is also a poor child. His father had his mother killed, and now the mother is in prison. Who would want to adopt the child of a murderer? He can only stay here. The other children also distanced themselves from him. I've tried to intervene, but it hasn't helped much. If this continues, I'm worried about his mental health. We can only hope the adults will guide him more. 2 figures flashed through my mind. Are his parents Charles and Laura? The dean looked at me in surprise. How did you know? Of course I know. After all, these 2 people changed my life. The dean tentatively said, if it's an old acquaintance, would you consider adopting? This child is very smart and well-behaved, and does well in school, though a bit introverted. I decisively refused. No, thank you. I am not saintly enough to adopt the child of those 2. I just hope these 2 people completely disappear from my life. When Anna was about to give a lollipop to Charles's son, I stopped her. This person is a big friend. Mom will give it to you. You go play with the other kids, okay? Anna obediently nodded. I walked up to the boy and handed him the lollipop, saying, this is for you. I hope you can grow up to be an honest and kind person. A life like that will be peaceful. The boy looked up at me, his face very similar to Charles's, and said, thank you, Auntie. I turned and walked away. I hope he doesn't repeat the same mistakes. That was my last act of kindness towards him, and my life has already changed completely. In the future, I will grow old with the person I love the most. I leaned against James's shoulder, watching our daughter flying a kite in front of us. Beside me is my father, who has found his beloved in his later years. The photos I took were featured in a nature magazine and received considerable attention. My life is very fulfilling. The future will continue to be this way.